Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blue, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So I alluded to this last night on the live stream, but I'm going to reiterate it here because it was towards the end of the show. It was almost like a throwaway line. I didn't put emphasis on it. Now I need to put emphasis on this because as the losses continue to pile up, a lot of people go to the whole, hey, we need to get rid of Ron, fire this entire staff. Let's find a new guy. Let's get some new fresh blood in here. And I keep reiterating to you guys, Ron's not getting fired, okay? Unless this thing becomes a total revolt with the players absolutely quitting on Ron, which is not going to happen. You heard Jonathan Allen the other day on the Junkies. You know, a lot of us focused on the ending of what he said where he was kind of directing his comments towards the fans. But at the very beginning of that, the little clip that I played for you guys, that's Jonathan Allen talking about what strength Ron has. And his strength is to galvanize men. He's a leader of men. They're not going to quit on Ron, okay? And there are a lot of guys that were here when Ron first got here that saw him battle through cancer, show up to work every day, and continue to fight despite not being his best version of himself, not feeling 100%. So they're not. If that guy's going to give you that type of effort, if that guy's going to show up despite having chemotherapy treatments and not being 100%, but he's going to keep coming to work and pouring into you and giving you everything he's got, they're not going to quit on him, okay? So I just want to reiterate to you guys that there was a report that came out, I want to say maybe 24, 36 hours ago. And again, it just kind of slid under the radar because if you're paying attention to this situation with any kind of attention to detail, you'll realize that the Snyders aren't in a position to fire Ron Rivera. They're not, okay? They've got enough shit going on that they don't need to be worried about hiring a new coach for the Washington Commanders. And with everything going on with this organization pretty much being a new organization and all the rebranding that's gone on this year, they're not in a position to fire Ron Rivera. They're just not. It's just not a good situation for them right now. They can't rock the boat. So unless Ron is absolutely doing a horrific job and this team is 2-15, which is not going to happen, I can't stress this enough, he's not getting fired. So the report essentially was that unless this thing falls apart at the seams, Ron Rivera is safe as the head coach of the Washington Commanders. I've been telling you guys this, okay? So that report, all it did was reinforce what I've been stating all along, which is Ron's not going anywhere. This team isn't going to be, 3-14. Despite how bad they've looked, they're going to win some games. This league is all about parity. This league is all about being week to week. They could look terrible one week, and the very next week they come back and they win a game. And we've got a schedule. Again, it's not like the schedule from last year where you go, how the hell are we going to beat Buffalo? How are we going to beat the Chargers? How are we going to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? How are we going to beat some of these teams, the Green Bay Packers, this, that, and the third? And these teams, even the teams that I just mentioned that we played last year, they don't even look like themselves this year. So it's parity across the board. You heard what Tom Brady said. I don't know if you did, but I'll tell you what Tom Brady said. He was asked about how this league has so many 2-2 teams. Remember, I told you on the podcast, and I know a lot of you don't even watch the podcast, so you didn't hear me say this, but I'll say it here, that this is one of the most crazy and weird seasons in the NFL with parity that I've ever seen. And, again, we're prisoners of the moment. That can be hyperbole. And you say, okay, Louie T, yeah, right, whatever, dude. You say things like that all the time. No, I actually don't say things like this all the time. But the fact that we only have one undefeated team, usually at this point of the season, there are 4 or 5 undefeated teams. There are 5 or 6 winless teams. And then there's the middle class of the NFL, right? This year, there's one undefeated team. That's Philadelphia Eagles. There's one winless team right now. That's the Houston Texans. And everybody else is 1-3, 2-2, or 3-1. That's crazy. Understand that. The Jets are 2-2. So what I'm telling you is it's a lot of foolishness going on. And any week you can win a football game. And Tom Brady said at the podium, so you said, what I see with all these 2-2 teams, it's a lot of bad football being played. Brady's been in the league for 2 decades. He knows what good football looks like. And he probably talking about his own team as well. Like, we're not playing good football either. He's like, I've seen a lot of bad football. That's what I see with all these 2-2 teams, a lot of bad football. And so, translation, we're playing bad football. He's talking about us, right? But he's talking about a lot of teams. And we play a lot of the teams that he's referring to. We play them on our schedule. We play Indianapolis. We play Houston. We play Atlanta. We play, and again, those teams are saying, hey, we played Washington, right? But I said all that to say this. We're not going to be 5-12. We're not going to be 4-13. We're not going to be 3-14. I know some of you would like that. Some of you would like to see us bottom out. Ron gets fired so we can repeat the cycle again, right? So we can start over and do it all over again. And then 2 years later, you'll be bitching about that coach and wanting him fired and want to do it all over again. Because again, it's not going to change until the owner's no longer here. So understand that. You may get lucky. You may have 1 or 2 seasons in there that's cool, and you're like, hey, maybe we can build off of that. But the likelihood is we're not going to. That said, Ron's not getting fired. I said all that to say this, just so you guys know, Ron's not getting fired. We're not going to have a top 5 pick. You're not going to be able to select Bryce Young or CJ Stroud or any of these guys. Understand that we're going to end up with the 13th pick or something like that in the draft. We're going to win 7, 8, 9 games somewhere in that general vicinity. And depending on 7, 8, or 9, that's going to depend on whether we're 11th, 15th, or 19th. So understand Ron's not going anywhere. And so either you're going to continue to support or you're just going to kind of watch from afar. But Ron will be here regardless. So in other news, got the injury report. And kind of looks like it did yesterday, to be honest with you, especially on our side. The Titans added a few more names to it. We'll take a look at that in a second. We heard from Jack Del Rio and Scott Turner, as we always do on Thursdays. And I really don't have a lot to say about what was said because, again, I told you they were going to pretty much say the same shit that they always say. I appreciate Jack because Jack is consistent. Jack is consistent and not giving you anything and just keeping it short and sweet. And Scott usually does, tell you, and answer your question and give you a little something. But he hasn't been great this year. And I think he understands that. But does he? I don't know, right? So let's take a look at this injury report real quick. And what you see is pretty much everybody that didn't practice yesterday didn't practice today, which isn't a good sign. I told you Wednesday is one thing. Thursday is a totally different animal. So no Percy Butler again. He was on the side field with Jahan Dotson today with the trainer. So that tells me that there's the likelihood that not only is Jahan Dotson not going to play, but Percy Butler probably isn't going to play either. Again, he's one of our best special teams players. So that's where you're going to feel the impact of no Percy Butler. He's the best gunner on this team currently as constructed. So, that sucks, Sam Cosmi, we know he's not playing. I don't even know why he's on the injury report, but I guess because he's not technically on IR that he has to be on the injury report. He's not playing. We know he's going to be out for at least the next 2 to 4 weeks. John Dotson, hamstring. Ron has already told us 1 to 2 weeks, so he's not playing either. Milo Eifler, hamstring. He's another core special teamer. Another one of those dudes that's usually one of the first down there to try to make a tackle. He's got a hamstring. He didn't practice today. This has been lingering with him for the last couple of weeks, so it might have finally gotten the best of him, and he may have to rest. Especially with this quick turnaround, it wouldn't be in the best interest of the team to rush guys that are, having little ailments and knick-knack injuries because you got a game 4 days later after Sunday's contest against the Titans. So if you don't think this guy's going to be ready for Sunday, you might as well just wait and see if they're ready for Thursday because you're going to have some guys that aren't going to be ready to go on Thursday. You might need some of these guys that are out on Sunday to be ready to go for you on Thursday. Curtis Samuel, illness. That's again, Thursday, illness. You're still kind of a little nervous. Illnesses are interesting because he could not practice tomorrow, feel better on Saturday, and be ready to go Sunday, right? But you get nervous with illnesses because I talked about this yesterday. If a guy's ill and he's not keeping down fluids all week and he's feeling weak, it's tough to then. This isn't basketball, right? You're getting hit. This is a contact sport. This isn't basketball. This isn't baseball where you don't have to make contact with anybody else. And so you could not keep fluids down all week, be somewhat weak, get an IV and step up and play in those sports. Football's a little bit different. Last thing you want to do is be a little bit weak and then have somebody hit you right in your stomach. That's what this game is all about, getting hit. So I don't know, man. It's a little dicey with the Curtis Samuel. And again, with not having Jahan Dotson, shit gets really, really dicey if he can't go. We talk about next man up all the time, and we feel like the receiver position is pretty deep. But none of us have confidence in De'Ami Brown at this point. And Cam Sims is cool. And I don't have any problems with Cam Sims having to play more. But again, I've stated this already. If there's no Jahan Dotson and no Curtis Samuel, you're back to essentially the crew that you had last year. And I would even argue that the crew we had last year with DeAndre Carter and Adam Humphries was better than the crew that we would be putting on the field this year. Now, again, I got confidence in Cam Sims, but I can't speak for the rest of these dudes making a true difference in the game. So we'll see, but let's hope that Curtis Samuel is able to snap out of it, and get better and feel better by Friday or Saturday and able to play on Sunday. But he's trending towards not playing either. The rest of these guys, I feel pretty good about them being able to suit up on Sunday and give it a go. Charles Leno is going to play. Not worried about him in the shoulder. Listen to him in the locker room. And he's not going to sit out a game. He's just not with the shoulder. And he said he's actually getting better. Again, I don't listen to players when they talk about their injury situation, but he's playing. That's all that we need to know. Whether it's actually getting better or not, that's of no consequence. He's playing, so don't worry about that. David Mayo, limited with the hamstring. Again, another, core special teamer. And, what is big for him is he's a backup linebacker, and we don't have any depth at that position. So we may talk all that shit we want about David Mayo, but if he can't go, who knows what the backup situation looks like. Obviously, there's still John Bostic, but again, you want to have, at a position like linebacker where we're already super thin, we probably need David Mayo to be, ready to go. So we'll see. That's something to keep an eye on. And then William Jackson, the third back, he full participant, and Daniel Wise full. That's great. Looks like Daniel Wise is going to be back. We've missed him the last couple of weeks. Even though we've played well up front, you can never have too many defensive linemen. It'll be great to have Daniel Wise back in the mix. So now we go to the Tennessee Titans side of things. And their injury situation looks a lot like ours. The guys that didn't practice yesterday aren't practicing today. So, Ola Adeniji, no practice. Treylon Burks, he's not playing. So, again, similar to Sam Cosmi, why is he even on this injury report? We know he's out for 2 to 4 weeks with the turf toe. Zach Cunningham, elbow, didn't practice, may not play. Bud Dupree, hip, no practice again today, may not play. We'll see. Joe Jones, knee, didn't practice yesterday, didn't practice today. Torrey Carter, limited yesterday, limited again today. Again, keep an eye on that. Amani Hooker, this is interesting. Concussion, limited yesterday, did not practice today. Huge safety for this Titans in their secondary. If he can't go, that hurts them. Ugo Amadi, full yesterday, full again today. And then they added 3 guys that weren't on the injury report. So this is big stuff. When you add guys that weren't there previously, it means either something cropped up or they've had a nagging injury. They've been avoiding it, but now it's a problem, and the team had to list it. Nate Davis, guard for the Titans, interior offensive lineman, knee, did not practice. That's big, okay? They're already down their starting left tackle, and, adding a guy like Nate Davis to the list is a pretty big effing deal. Caleb Farley, limited. This is a young Titan secondary that could ill afford to lose one of their starting corners. I think he's going to play. But, again, he's been added to the list, so it's just something to keep an eye on. Ben Jones, again, another veteran offensive lineman, center, back, limited. Again, expect him to go if need be, but something to keep an eye on nonetheless. So we heard from the coordinators today. Real quick on Jack, Jack's pretty much like, look, really like what the guys are doing, love what the safeties are doing, love the young boys, and now they're playing back there, which I have told you guys. I really think that the young boys are coming into their own, especially Derek Forrest. Really love what he's providing us. He's keeping it awfully quiet back there. I see him in coverage. He's step for step with these guys right there. That's why they're not trying him a ton, and he's playing really good ball. Talked about the defensive line and how they've continued to grow and they're getting better. And I like the depth, John Ridgway has added some depth. You're going to get Daniel Wise back here. And so now with the Bama Wall and then, John Ridgway and then Daniel Wise, you've got a nice complete group of 4 that you feel comfortable rotating in and out of the lineup. And now F.A. Obata doesn't have to kick down inside. You can keep him at defensive end where he belongs. And so we're starting to get a lot healthier. And then eventually at some point, Chase Young will be back. And that will really complete the cipher on the defensive line. And you'll feel really good about what we have. But you got to get better play out of the corners. And, Jack wouldn't throw anybody on the bus, nor should he. But we got to get better play out of the corners, man. That's really the biggest issue on the team right now. I don't think anybody can doubt that the cornerback position. And he talked about Juice and how well he's played. And I think everybody's seen that with their own two eyes, that Juice is the best corner, or at least the most consistent corner that we have right now. Not really even close, to be honest with you. He's the guy that makes the least amount of mistakes, which is really disappointing because the other two guys that are starters on the outside are veterans. You expect them to be leading the way and the young fella to just be trying to keep up with their pace. But he's the tone setter, is Benjamin St-Juste. And those two are, we're just saying, please don't F up. And usually week after week they do anyway. So, he talked about the sacks. He talked about the turnovers and how, we hear the same shit all the time. They come in bunches. Yeah. I love Deron Payne's answer. He was, they had a little scrum in the locker room as they do every week, and they asked him about turnovers. He's like, look, until we as players start he said turnovers come when you actually go after them, when you start raking at the ball, when you start trying to punch it out. Until we as players start doing that, we're not going to get the turnovers. So we got to start being mindful of that. Start trying to punch the football out. Start trying to reach for the ball and go after it. So if we want turnovers, we're going to have to force them. That's the best answer I've heard on that. Instead of, I thought he was going to give us the obligatory, turnovers come in bunches. And so, they're going to come. No, F that. Address the elephant in the room. We're not actually trying to force turnovers, from a standpoint of punching the football out, ripping it out, that kind of thing. We got to be more aggressive like the other teams in the league are. You got to be intentional when you go after the football. But anyway, Scott Turner spoke about the offensive struggles, the play action fake. I told you he was going to be asked about that at least 3 or 4 times, and he was. And, he kind of minimized it like, hey, we had some negative plays, and we need to do a better job of marrying the play action fake and making it look like a run. But, it might have been something we showed, 2 games ago. Again, they're not asking the questions that I would prefer to ask. And I want to hear about where's the bootleg off of some of this stuff. Why aren't you setting up more things? Why did you think it was okay to block Michael Parsons with a tight end? But he knows this stuff. He made a comment about a double team block where we got a penalty where one of the guys left too soon. I made mention of that same thing in my film breakdown. So he knows what the hell's going on. It's just, can you just do a better job then? And, something he spoke of is something that people keep bringing up, and that's the Carson Wentz audible thing, right? So this is, it's not a big deal to me. That's why I haven't talked about it, because I don't care about it, because at the end of the day, he just got here. He doesn't know the offense all that great, and they don't want him audibling. That's fine. Okay, fine, whatever. He said, Carson can set the protection, change it from a 5-man protection to a 6-man protection, slide protection left, slide it right, pinch it inside. If he sees a double A gap blitz or something like that. But as far as changing the play, he doesn't have autonomy to do that. And Scott pretty much said that he doesn't have. Ron said that, and then Scott doubled down and said he essentially doesn't have the autonomy to do that. Which, okay, you guys are really making a big deal out of nothing, okay? The best quarterbacks in the league have the autonomy to do that. I guarantee you most quarterbacks in the league, a lot of them, aren't changing plays at the line of scrimmage. Only the best of the best, okay? Carson Wentz is not the best of the best. Okay, the best of the best may go to the line of scrimmage with 2 or 3 options, and they can change it to, a run, or they called 2 runs in the huddle, and one's to the left, one's to the right, or they called a pass as well. Not a lot of teams are doing that shit, though. That's sophisticated. That's for the next level quarterbacks. We don't have one of those here in Washington, so I'm not tripping about that. It'd be one thing if Carson had been here, 2-3 years, and we're talking about that. Then it's a problem. Carson doesn't have full command of this offense yet. You'd be a damn fool to think he does. So for him, I just want him to execute the play that's called correctly. Damn, having the ability to audible and this, that, and the third. How about you just execute and go through your reads properly and get the football to the guy that's open? That's what I'm more concerned with. Less concerned with, can he audible at the line of scrimmage? More concerned with, can you get the football to the guy that's open on that particular play? So, he talked about that. Again, nothing really noteworthy from Scott Turner. At the end of the day, I don't think there was anything really to glean from what he said other than, he really doesn't have the autonomy to change the play. He can set protections and he can change that if he needs to, but not really the opportunity to change the play. Okay, cool. It doesn't bother me. That doesn't bother me. It's not a big deal, if you ask me. with where he is in the playbook. You know, if this were the offense he was in Indianapolis and in Philadelphia, then I'd have a problem with it because he knows the offense back and forth. You can put more on his plate. He can handle it. Right now, I just want him to execute the play as it's called. Period. End of discussion. So, with that said, let's go ahead and take a trip behind enemy lines. So we're behind enemy lines. Again, we're in the bunker. And I got somebody with me here to help us break down this week 5 matchup versus the Tennessee Titans. It's my old friend, MJ from Sports Fan Entertainment. Thank you for joining us today on the program. I'm going to jump right into it. Tennessee Titans week 5 matchup for the Washington Commanders. Titans are 2-2. Commanders are 1-3. I always like to go back before we can move forward and talk about present day. A.J. Brown trade. How the hell did that happen? How did we get here? Why is he not a Tennessee Titan right now? Do you think it was true that he would have taken $22 million or whatever it was, that number he said he would have taken had the Titans offered him that? And how disappointed were you when you found out he was going to be traded?
So this is all conjecture, and as I get to know more and more of A.J. Brown's personality, I'm not really sure what to believe, and I'm not sure what comes out of that man's mouth sometimes. But in looking at how negotiations were going up to that point, and this I want to say for sure was before the extension of Stephon Diggs, and there was another big, and I think it was right after Mike Williams, and Mike Williams got about $20 million a year, and then Stephon Diggs ended up getting 24. This also should have been. I think it was after the Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill, but those were very like high end. So we were still feeling like 22, 23 was like a decent number. We weren't expecting 25. But I really think he would have taken that.
Yeah. I want to say DJ Moore was in there as well, but he's better than DJ Moore.
I think he got like 20 or 21 million a year.
Right. Something like that, right?
Something around that number too. So there was a lot of wide receivers looking at that number. And I think we would have given it to him. But the problem was really when it came to our fan base, or our franchise, we have a history. We have a rule that needs to change, in my opinion. We do not enter contract negotiations until pretty much after the draft, well into the offseason. We had a Julio Jones situation where we knew he was going to be a post-June 1 cut. And for some reason, we wanted to wait until after that, which I don't think that makes much sense because you can finagle the money to where that wouldn't matter anyway.
Right.
But he just got impatient. And then Devontae Adams got impatient. Tyreek Hill got impatient. A.J. Brown got impatient. These men wanted to get paid. It's the now movement in the NFL. If you have leverage, you want to get paid, you're either going to get paid or you're going to get traded. Or you're still going to get paid and traded. So it's just the way it's working now with a lot of these players, especially quarterbacks and wide receivers. And, I wasn't happy about it then. I'm not happy about it now looking at how our passing offense is coming along. But it is what it is.
Yeah, obviously it's revisionist history now. You can't go back and change it. But I was shocked. I'm going to be honest with you. And for the guy that you swapped him out for, I just didn't think it made a ton of sense. But we can tackle that a little bit later on in the discussion. So, all right. So, let's fast forward to present day. The Titans started the season off 0-2. They've rattled off 2 straight wins. Your last game prior to your bye, you can hit the reset button a bit, trying to get a win, get over 500, get back into the swing of things in that all of a sudden, semi-competitive AFC South division. What's the general feeling around the Tennessee Titans right now at 2-2?
Well, for like any fan base, it really varies week to week. After the first 2 weeks, it was a total disaster. Everything's going wrong. Now you win 2 games in a row, and now we're back all of a sudden. I was one of the more rational Titans fans heading into this season. I was expecting to compete for the division, 9-8, 10-7. We're obviously not going to be as good without A.J. Brown on this roster, a roster that has a nice, rookie class, but really leaning on their rookie class. I expected a bit of a transition from that number 1 seed that we were last year, despite getting Derrick Henry back. He's still going to have to, get some time to get his legs under him. So like any fan base, it really varies week to week. But I feel like the general consensus is we are okay with competing for the AFC South. We expect to compete for the AFC South. And just knowing that we, at least early on, blew up the doors against Indianapolis. And it ended up being a competitive game, unfortunately, by the end of the fourth quarter. But just having that strong performance on the road against a divisional rival, people are feeling good. Morale is high enough. It's not too high, but it's high enough. And really, if we would have won week 1, we'd be sitting here 3-1, and then morale would be just as it was last year. So, I mean, that's the sample size when you're talking about 4 games. That's, unfortunately, what you're talking about, the NFL season thus far. Literally one game where Brian Daboll goes for 2, switches the entire morale from feeling great to feeling like, we're okay.
Yeah. I definitely can get that. I've looked at this roster, and I don't love this offense, to be honest with you. I think your defense is really good. It's a really sound group, very disciplined. They're to me, they're the splitting image of Mike Vrabel. Where does this roster rank among the rosters that Mike Vrabel has had since he's taken over as Titans head coach, in your estimation?
I would argue it's definitely probably better than the 2018 roster, equal to 2019 and 2020. That's how about how I'd rank those rosters. 2020 roster was also in a bit of transition as we were like leaning more on guys from moving off from Gerald Casey to like a big Jeff Simmons, moving to AJ Brown.
Time out. Hold on, time out. I need you to do that correctly here, okay? I've told them that. Thank you.
Yeah. Moving on from Gerald Casey to my boy, number 1 in your heart, Big Jeff Simmons.
Thank you.
As we transition from him to him and AJ Brown and Harold Landry, like that was a very transitionary period for us, moving from what was the Mike Mularkey Tennessee Titan core to this Mike Vrabel Tennessee Titans core that really peaked in 2021. And again, we just look back and we just, as a fan base, wish that Derrick Henry was healthy for that run, and we just imagine what would have happened if he was. But, that's neither here nor there now. So I think it ranks better than 2018, roughly equal to 2019 and 2020. But offensively, I agree with you, though. There's not much here right now. I was not a huge fan of the addition of Robert Woods. I think he's a number 2, and that's fine if he's a number 2. But if you're expecting him to be a number 1, he's not that. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, I don't even know how many teams in the NFL he would actually make. Right. Kyle Phillips is a rookie. We'll see. Traylon Burks is a rookie. He's injured right now. And then there's nothing beyond that in terms of the wide receiver core and the tight ends. Austin Hooper is barely holding on to being an NFL tight end. He's only a starting tight end by name only, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I look at that roster offensively, and I think when they acquired Robert Woods, it was to pair him with AJ Brown. I think that was the mindset. At least that's how I viewed it, because again, as you mentioned, he's not a number 1 receiver. He's never been, and he'll never be a number 1 wide receiver, but he's the quintessential number 2. He's exactly what you're looking for. If you're looking for a compliment to a Batman, he's the perfect Robin. And so I just assumed that, I said, if the Titans get just a quality slot receiver like a Cole Beasley, which I think Phillips can, develop into, then you'll be absolutely fine if you still had AJ Brown. But now that you don't have AJ Brown, Traylon Burks has to develop into that guy. I don't think he is that guy, but we'll see. Time will tell. He's extremely raw, but I didn't think that was a good trade-off because of where the Titans are, right? This is a veteran team that's looking to win now. I didn't think that AJ Brown trade made a ton of sense for where the Titans are right now. If you were a team that was just, coming into your own and the window was just opening, a lot of people forget the Titans were the number 1 seed last year in the AFC. It's so easy to forget because they were here 1 second, they were gone just like that. But they were the number 1 seed in the AFC last year. This is a team that has gone to the playoffs each of the last, 3 years, correct? Right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Each of the last 3 years. So this is a team that's ready to win now, and it felt like they kind of, I don't want to say hit the reset button. They're kind of trying to do this on the fly, but it just seems like you took a step back from where you were a season ago. But with that said,
and you're right, and like that's why I was very frustrated because I felt, as if it was an indication that, hey, we're just gonna go through a bit of a transitory year, and then even like I'm still intrigued by Malik Willis, but to take him in the 3rd round, and I honestly, I'm someone that doesn't have a problem taking a guy in the 3rd round that may never start for you. I think it's a decent investment,
right?
But even then, you're starting to send signals like maybe we need to retool a little bit. Maybe this core that we have may not be it long term. So yeah, I think you're definitely onto something there.
And that's the kind of the sense that I got when I saw the kind of pivot that I felt like they were making. But you'll see. I think Tannehill's playoff game spooked them a bit, and I think that knee-jerk reaction was to go get a quarterback. And this wasn't the year to have to go after a quarterback, right? Like no one, the league spoke. There was one first round quarterback, no quarterback taken in the second round. And then we saw like 2 or 3 guys go in the third round. So the league spoke about how they felt about the quarterback position. But, we'll see what happens with Malik Willis in Tennessee and if it evolves to anything or any of those quarterbacks for that matter. Desmond Ridder in Atlanta and, the kid in Matt Corral in Carolina and so forth and so forth. But I want to stick with the offensive side of the football because if I'm not mistaken, Derrick Henry's first 100-yard game came last week against the Indianapolis Colts, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so he's been struggling to start this season off. And look, the Giants are a really good defense. So are the Buffalo Bills. Raiders, not so much. Colts, and he usually kills them anyway. So, how are you feeling about Derrick Henry right now as we head into week 5? Is he starting to hit his stride? Is this offensive line starting to gel a little bit? Obviously Taylor Lewan looking like he's done for the season potentially. How is Derrick Henry kind of coming along at the start of this season?
Yeah, so I'm going to completely defend his week 1 performance against the Giants. That was about 4 yards a carry. He had about 84 yards. That's a fine game for me for Derrick Henry. The only difference in that one, he didn't break a 30, 40-yard one, which is the difference between his week 1 game and his week 4 game, right? And then he got a touchdown, right? So then fantasy owners are happy because, okay, week 4, he got a touchdown and he got over 100 yards. Not a huge difference if you turn on the tape between week 1 and week 4. Now, what I will say is I definitely don't see the dominant Derrick Henry. I don't see the guy that's, breaking off 80-yard touchdowns, stiff-arming guys. I haven't seen that. But in terms of running in between the tackles, in terms of running side to side, laterally, making those runs and those decisions, he's the same Derrick Henry to me. Is that explosiveness still there? I haven't seen that yet. But I will say that his touchdown last week against the Colts was particularly impressive. It's about 20 yards. So it wasn't something that was particularly explosive. But I definitely saw glimpses of the Derrick Henry that we used to know. So I still think he's getting his legs under him, getting back into the frame, into the mold. And, as a running back, that in training camp, while you get reps, it's a different speed when you start playing, actual games again. Mm-hmm. So I'm not worried about Derrick Henry yet. I think he's going to be fine. I think his 2,000-yard rushing years might be behind him, but I mean, how many players have multiple 2,000 rushing yard type seasons? That's just not something that you see. But I think he could still easily get 13, 14, 1,500 yards this season and even into the next. I still think he has that many years left in him.
So this is a theory of mine now. He's always seen heavy boxes. A lot of his big runs come with 8, 9 guys in the box, breaks through that first wave of defenders. And then I've contended this. I haven't seen anybody catch this man ever from behind. He just doesn't. It didn't happen at Alabama. It hasn't happened with the Titans. He just doesn't get caught from behind, right? So he's seen loaded boxes before. The Titans have seen loaded boxes. Does this feel different, though, because there's no A.J. Brown? Obviously, there's no Julio Jones. There's no one to really – hell, at one point there was even the guy that's in Detroit now, the small, fast receiver.
Josh Reynolds?
No. There's another one that played with you guys that had.
Khalif Raymond.
Khalif Raymond.
Khalif
there
Raymond.
You go. There's not even a Khalif Raymond on this roster that can stretch the field vertically for you. Like, are teams playing the Titans differently to just stop? Like, I dare you to throw the football. You've got 19 tight ends, no receivers. I dare you to throw the football, but Derrick Henry won't beat us.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I don't think we've even had – I'd have to go back and really, count the number of plays where we've, literally thrown the ball deep over the middle of the field. I don't think we've done that more than maybe twice this year, a couple times to the sideline, but safeties are not respecting our deep ball at all right now, and they shouldn't. Robert Woods, again, this is a guy that when he came into the league now, I don't even know how many years ago, maybe let's say 7+ years ago now. And he wasn't a speedster then, so he's definitely not a speedster now. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, absolutely not. We've signed Josh Gordon, but he hasn't looked particularly impressive in camp, and we know how you really can't expect much of him at this point. I mean, I don't know why people still even mention his name, but whatever. I guess he's still the name from 2013. We're still mentioning Josh Gordon.
Right.
So it's just there's no deep threat. Even at tight end, we don't have speed at tight end. So there's no deep threat. The safeties can come down, and while we've had stack box in the past.
Right.
Teams always had respect, not only A.J. Brown over the top, but the fact that A.J. Brown is one of the best yards after catch wide receivers in the NFL.
Right.
So if you even try to stack the box and not have any safety help in case A.J. Brown catches that slant to turn around and go get him, well, he's gone. And we saw that time and time again. And that's one of the things that made this Titans offense so dynamic. Now we don't have a wide receiver not even close that's going to get that sort of yards after the catch. So, yeah, it's just one of the problems with the Titans offense right now.
Yeah, I completely concur. That's kind of what I'm seeing. That's the feeling that I'm getting. So I always ask anyone that comes behind enemy lines with me, because I love to give our fan base the perception, the outward perception of what people think about our franchise, because we know how we feel and we know how we think others feel about our franchise and how we're perceived, but we always love to hear it from someone else's mouth. So thoughts about this potential game. First thing I want to hear from you, though, is as a Titans fan, how are you approaching this game mentally? Are you saying we better not lose this game? Because I always tell our fans, we look at every team on our schedule that we feel like is a winnable game. We look at them like food, right? But obviously, when the schedule comes out, every team that sees Washington on their schedule is looking at us like food. They've got their napkin tucked in their shirt. They've got fork. They've got knife. They're ready to eat. And they're expecting a win. If you start doing the schedule game and you see Washington, that's a win on most teams' schedules. So I ask you, how are you going into this game? The bye week is right there. It's dangling in front of you, right? You don't want to. I've heard trap games used at least 15 times talking to Titans fans. How do you view this game against Washington?
So I'll give my opinion. I'll give the general fan base's opinion. You're right. Most of the fan base has it as a W. They don't respect Washington, even though we ourselves have lost to Washington twice in the last 3 matchups when no one expected us to lose to Washington. So you think that they learned that by now. But yeah, the most of the fan base is expecting a win, maybe not a particularly easy win, but at least a 7 to 10 point win for sure. Whereas I look at the Washington football team, or now the Commanders, and I specifically look at them at a very critical point when it comes to the Ron Rivera era. And knowing that coming off of this now 3 straight games that they've lost. And I've seen this team with their backs against the wall under Ron Rivera before. I've seen them come off the bye week and beat the Buccaneers. I've seen them go to Las Vegas last year and get a win when no one really expecting them to. And this is with Taylor Heineke at the helm. I've seen them come back and end up winning the NFC East and going to, and even having a decent game against the Bucs in an NFC wildcard game. So I'm not sleeping on this Commanders team unless, and this is one of my keys to this game, unless if really in that locker room, they're just starting to lose faith in the program. Unless if after the Cowboys lost and after the Eagles lost, apathy is setting in. Winston's going to be a good leader in the locker room, and this is going to be that pivot point for where this will spell the doom of Ron Rivera. And I've listened to you, Sean. You said Ron Rivera's not going to get fired this year. You know the team better than I do. And, with the whole situation with the owner, I think that's very possible. But I do think if you lose this game, it could get ugly fast. And I do think this is a very critical point. So I know that this team's dangerous. I would be really concerned if, Chase Young was out there, but he's still recuperating. But I know that this defense can lock you down. And I know that this offense can score points. They haven't scored in the last 2 weeks. But I know they can still score points. And Wentz, while inconsistent, he'll only be poor for too long. He's always bound to have a game where he puts up points.
I feel like our backs are definitely against the wall. I won't say it's a must win. I've called it a must win. I don't think they're approaching it as a must win, but you can hear the sense of urgency. I do think our backs are starting to, especially looking at the division, right? 4-0 Eagles, 3-1 Giants, 3-1 Cowboys. Like, it's really no margin for error at this point. So this is definitely a big game for Washington. So I do think they're going to come out, guns are blazing, backs up against the wall. We got nothing to lose. We got to go out here. We got to find a way to get it done. So we'll see what happens. Strength and weaknesses. Okay, I want a strength, maybe 2 or 3 if you got them. Same thing with the weaknesses for this Titans football team, right, as of right now.
Yeah, so strengths for this team, I would continue to say our overall front 7, specifically our pass rush. Now, this is interesting because we're actually missing our best pass rushing outside linebacker right now in Harold Landry, but we have a sophomore player in Rashad Weaver, who was a 4th-round pick out of Pitt last year, missed all of last year due to a torn ACL. He has 4 sacks in his first 4 games. He's playing really well. Danico Autry had a hell of a game last week. You know, my boy, Big Jeff Simmons in that interior defensive line. I mean, the guy continues to make plays, man. He's definitively making himself known as one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. So for sure, our front seven, our secondary is still, specifically our cornerbacks are still young, but they're showing promise. But overall, the defense is what we rely upon. And definitely the front seven is definitely the strength for this team overall. And then obviously they're running out position in Derrick Henry, assuming that we block for it. Right. I mean, it's always a question or not whether or not that's going to happen, as currently we have a situation where we have our left tackle, Taylor Lewan, who is out for the season. We have Dennis Daly, who's stepping in there. Still figuring out much about him. We have a rookie right now at right tackle. So those tackles are still coming into their own. Weaknesses, as we mentioned earlier, wide receivers. The wide receivers are just, I mean, Robert Woods is a number 2. And then I'm not sure if any other wide receiver outside of Traylon Burks, who's a rookie, I'm not sure what any of their NFL careers are going to look like, if they're even be starting in the NFL or playing in the NFL in 2-3 years. I have no idea. Kyle Phillips, I like, but he has slot potential, but I need to see more. He has 2 muff punts on the year.
He's been dropping the ball on punts.
Yeah. So you can't expect much from him, at least right now. So he's not a concern. So wide receiver is definitely weakness. To me, also tight end, because I'm seeing nothing from Austin Hooper. I think he's only a tight end in name only at this point. He was only signed to a $4 million contract. I think it was either 4, maybe a little bit more than that anyway. So we weren't expecting much from him, but I mean, he's done absolutely nothing for us. He's completely non-existent in the receiving game. And he's never been a strong blocking tight end. We have a 3rd round, or actually, I think he was a 5th. Actually, no, 3rd round tight end. Who haven't we seen much from yet, but again, he's a rookie. So we're relying a lot on rookies, which again is so odd for a team that was 12-5 last year, number 1 seed. And I'm talking about all these rookies that we're really relying upon to come in and service for us. So yeah, weaknesses definitely wide receiver, tight end, and then strength would definitely be our front seven.
Yeah, and it kind of just hammers home the point that I made earlier, that, you know, this team it's just a weird space for them to be in after where they have been, specifically last season. It didn't seem like they needed to go in the direction that they've gone in. But I can't say Chigwo had his best game, you know, against the Colts last week. So he's kind of trending in the right direction. You know, we'll see. But all right. So we've set the table. Titans at Commanders, Sunday afternoon, 1:05, FedEx Field. Prediction for the game. What do you think is going to happen?
Okay, so ultimately, again, I think, and as a representative of this fan base, they're not going to love me for coming on here and saying this. I don't even want to say this is a trap game. I think that's foolish. I think we are a team that can obviously is intelligent enough to know what the Commanders are bringing and be prepared for it. And I think that's something that Mike Vrabel is going to preach. This game, to me, boils down to coaching and how these two teams can prepare. Can the Titans, because again, with their limited wide receivers right now, can they scheme a victory here? And we did that a lot of last year. I mean, a lot of our 12 wins were schematic wins, were coaching wins, were just hard-nosed wins where we weren't expected to win. We weren't expected to move the football, and we still would go and get it done in, you know, opposing territory a lot of times and beat teams that we should beat, sometimes beating teams that we shouldn't beat. So that's what I expect from this team, and that's what this team normally provides. But with the Commanders' backs against the wall, that's what scares me. What also scares me is that run defense, which has been a little inconsistent in that they did not perform well week 2 against the Lions. And then week 1 against the Jags, it was only okay. But the last 2
it wasn't
weeks,
good. It wasn't really good in that game either.
Cowboys could not run the ball well at all on them last week.
Right.
And the week before, you guys were facing the Eagles, right? I mean, that's one of the better rushing teams in the NFL with Sanders and Jalen Hurts. So you guys were able to slow them down. So it really boils down to also, if you guys can slow down Derrick Henry, keep him under 80 yards or even under 90, you make this passing offense one-dimensional. And then Tannehill and Robert Woods are only going to put up so many points.
Right.
They're only going to put up so many points. And it's now been 2 straight weeks now of the Commanders scoring 10 points, scoring 8 points. I think they're due for offensive resurgence. And this is despite the fact that I know Jahan Dotson is expected to miss this game. I'm just expecting their offense to show some signs of life. And ultimately, I do have to go with the Commanders to win this game. I think it's going to be a closely contested game for sure. I have the Commanders right now 23-20, getting it done. But I still have the Titans after the bye week going on a nice run, beating the Colts and the Texans. So we'll be all right. But I think this is a contest where I see more likely both these teams being 2-3 after this game than one team being 4, or one team being 3-2, other team being 1-4.
I hope you're right, man. I really do hope you're right. Is Bud Dupree playing this week?
Yes, he is playing.
Okay. And I had one more. We know Treylon Burks is probably going to be out. That's turf toe, right?
Yeah, he's definitely out. Yeah, he's
definitely out.
He'll be out for extended period of time.
Period of time, like almost like 2 to 4 weeks, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I thought it was one more person that I wanted to ask you about that I think they're going to probably play, but I think that might be the extent of it. But hey, man, I appreciate you coming on here as always. It's been far too long. We got to do this again a lot sooner, man. And first, before you go, tell all the people where they can find your work.
Yeah, man, if you just want to find my YouTube channel, I cover a lot about the Tennessee Titans, but the NFL overall as well, a lot more this season. Just type it into the YouTube search, Sports Fan Entertainment. I'm sure it'll come up. I'm on Twitter at the MJ Take. Those are my main 2 socials, so free to hit me up and check out my content.
That's my guy, MJ from Sports Fan Entertainment. I'm your man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me and going behind enemy lines. Titans, Commanders, Sunday afternoon. Bart Scott. Can't wait. Want to thank my guy MJ from over at Sports Fan Entertainment for coming on the program, going behind enemy lines and blessing us with his opinions and all the information that we needed about the Tennessee Titans. I feel really good after talking to him about where that team is and where we are and kind of coming to a consensus on what I think is going to take place. And I'll have that for you on tomorrow's show. Got some clarity from him, feel really good. We know what their offense is, or at least I felt like I did. He kind of confirmed a lot of things for me, and I feel really good. I've been telling you this all week. I feel really good about this game and this opportunity that's in front of us. But again, I felt good about other games. I felt good about Detroit. I felt good about Philadelphia. All right. Not so much about Dallas, but I felt good about those games, and look what happened. Look what the outcome was. So I can feel as good as I want to feel, but at the end of the day, we still got to go out and execute. And so we'll see if we're able to do that. But after talking to MJ, I think I know and I have a handle on what this Tennessee Titans team is all about. Now we got to go out and execute. And so we'll see if we can do that or not. I'll have the keys to victory tomorrow on the show and my prediction. So stay tuned for that. But in any event, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow when I give you the keys to victory during the game plan and, of course, the prediction for Week 5's contest versus the Tennessee Titans. Until then, you guys have a good one. Take care.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap. Hand to Riggins. Good hole. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20. He's gone. He's gone. Touchdown.